Okay. So yesterday we have addressed like how to come up with the synchronized method and achieve the mutex related things, right? So the same thing we'll see in the way of synchronized block and static synchronized block. So yesterday we just modified the method with the keyword called synchronized. So instead of that, what we can do is we can make the entire block itself as synchronized. So how do you create your block? So you just need to have the structure like this. So this would be like a syntax synchronized with the keyword, and you will just have the object reference. So this is the syntax. So whatever object you're going to have, you need to have the object reference expression here, whatever the expression is all about. So this would be your synchronized block. And there's one more way which is called static synchronization, which is like similar to your method. Only thing is you'll add the additional keyword called static. So how can we do this one? So let me comment this. And let's have this synchronized structure. Okay. And this is your object reference. Since I'm not sure like when the table object is passed, who passes it, what is the reference, right? So I'm just giving it as this. So this belongs to the current object which you have as part of it. And within that synchronized block, I'm going to have this piece of code. So I'm going to have this block within this method because I need the parameter. So what I have done is instead of having the synchronized keyword to my method, I just introduced a block within that method, and whatever object I get at that time, that would be used here. Okay. So rest all remains same. So let me go back to that and then execute the sequence. So this is again like the same one which you executed. This time you see the coding programs dot table. You just got the class name, whatever object you passed through that instance, and the entire sequence has been executed. So what is the difference between synchronized as a keyword to a method and synchronized as a block? So when you have the synchronized as a block, whenever that particular object is coming into this particular block, right, for execution, you're locking the shared resource. In our case, the shared resource is nothing but the table object. So whenever you get a table instance, as per the program, you're first passing this. And with that, you have created another reference. And now you're starting the first reference. So when you kickstart it, right now you have a reference of table. Now the same table will come here and you're using it and you're executing the entire thing. And in the second time, you're passing the same table instance again, right? So in that case, this is not getting like interrupted. You're actually maintaining a lock mechanism. So you can either go with this synchronized method, or this is also another way to implement the mutex concept. So these are the two concepts. And if you want something like a static, you like instead of not creating the object, you can have a method called static before this, and you can just call that. So I want you to try the same method, have the static keyword, and you don't need to create an object like table equal to new table. Instead, the class will be taken care of. So if you make your method as static and synchronized, so the lock will not be on the object which you pass, it will be on the class. So let's do that too. I'm not sure whether you guys can go ahead and try. Let me do that. So you have any questions on synchronized block?
No, Sneha. But the same thing only happened when we used as a method, right? Like one resource at a time got executed actually.
Yeah, both are same. See, if you have a static method and you have a static block, what happens? The static block will execute first. Only then the static method will be called, right?
Yes, yes.
Right? The same thing we are doing it here. Now, nothing else is a difference. So if you want your block to be executed first on priority, then you can have your block. Otherwise,
Block
you can just have a method as
method.
keyword called synchronize. Both are same,
Okay.
but we have two different ways to execute it. As you have static block and static method, same thing over here.
Okay.
Now let's have this as synchronized, but I'm going to introduce a keyword called static. Okay. Now let me go here. Let me run it again. So this time the execution, if you observe, it's same, right? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. The execution is same. And the part, like instead of creating the new object, I can directly call the print table itself, because right now the print table is static, right? I don't need to create the object itself. So what I can do, I can comment this. I can have table dot print table of 5. I need to change the entire thing. Just a moment. Let me go here. So instead of having this, right, as the object reference and these things, what I can do is I can directly call the object. Since it's a static, so I don't want table dot print table of 3. So you don't need to create an object. That is the only difference you have when you use static. So it will be like a static common code. And yeah. So here you don't need to call anything. So if you don't want an instance to be created every time, you can still want to handle it in a static way. In that case, you can handle it by using a keyword static. In that case, you're not dependent on the object itself. The entire lock will happen on the table. So unless this first thread gets completed, the table class will not be released. Post that only, the table class will be available for the second thread to use it. So these are the 3 ways you can achieve your concurrency through mutex exclusion or mutual exclusive way. So any questions here so far?
No, sir.
Okay. So now coming back to the situation of deadlock. So any idea about deadlock?
Two tasks waiting for the same resource will result in
Yeah. So what happens is both are waiting. Let's say the T1, we have an T2. We have 2 threads. Okay. What is happening is if I'm not giving thread dot sleep of some 10 seconds or 500 milliseconds, this T1 will have the control. It will execute. And by the time I'm also giving T2 dot start. This is also started and this is also going into the run method and using the same thing. So what happened? Both are actually waiting for the resources. So someone has to release the lock. Unless one releases, the other thread cannot consume it. So this would be like a deadlock situation, like an infinite thing. So T1 depends on T2, T2 depends on T1, but both will not release the lock unless you tell them explicitly in the thing. So such situations will fall into deadlock. Okay. So for that purpose, we have something called as inter-thread communication, which we saw in the yesterday, the second type, the cooperation. So how can we do this? So what we do here is we use the same synchronized way, the mutual exclusive way. But apart from that, we use something called wait and notify. Okay, so what is this wait and notify? Say suppose if T1 thread is coming into picture, it says like I'm right now using your shared resource, say like DB. I'm using the DB named as bank account. I'm using right now this table. So I'll just a moment. This one is starting. So now what happens if T1 is going to execute some query on some type of updation in your table entry. And by the time it is happening in your database, what happens when the T2 is coming into picture? So it will say like, please wait. So the T1 will tell the T2 to wait for some time unless I notify. So it will give wait action on T2 thread. And once it completes the update activity, okay, then it will notify so what happens here is when it comes here, it says wait to other threads and it will do the update action in the account table and it notifies the other threads to use the resource. Okay, so to do this, we need two methods in the Java. The one is wait and the other one is notify. So this is a way where each threads can communicate to each other without causing a deadlock situation. So that both threads can communicate together. They won't be like deadlock and you don't need to worry about how to resolve it or you have to restart your entire system because it's kind of a crashing, right? You never know what happened in the backend. The system will not progress if such situation happens. So what we do is we make sure that this kind of communication is happening between threads whenever there is more than one thread working on the same resource. So any questions on this?
No, Sneha.
Okay, so we'll see how this can be achieved in our real-time program. So have you ever heard about this buffer program? So this is like a multi-threaded environment. Most of the interviews as well as in the real-time example, we see this problem coming in called producer-consumer problem. Okay, so there's nothing but the wait and notify. You'll use this wait and notify. So where does this wait and notify come from? So we know there's a topmost class in Java. What is that topmost class?
Object class.
Yes, that is the object class, right? So in our object class, let me say object. I'm just now creating to show you those two methods. So object dot, right? You can see a wait method here, right? Same thing. There's some method called notify. So let me go into this. So this is again a final method. You can say interrupted exception. So it is basically like when threads communicate, we are making sure to give some time for that. It's similar to sleep, okay? So it is like you are telling that particular thread to wait for some time. Unless I notify, you should not have control on my resource. So that is the reason we have this wait method. And this wait method is again an overloaded method where you can pass wait with some time where how much time does that particular thread need to wait. You can tell that. And there's also one more method, the overloaded method, which is timeout with long as well as in the integer part. So this is the way you can make the other thread to wait for some time. And what is this notify does? If you see this native, the native is something in the backend in C or C++. The Java code, like the logic of this notify has already been addressed in your JVM. We are just using that. So we have seen earlier also native methods, right? It's similar to that. So what happens whenever you say notify, it's like a notification. Once you receive notification, you can go and access your resource and perform all the kind of activities on top of that resource with that. So for that, we have this notify. This is like if you have one thread, you can use notify. If you want to notify, then if it's a multi-threaded environment, like more than one thread you have, right? In that case, if you wanted to alert every thread, then you can use notify all. So these are the methods which we might use often. Since this is an what to say, interrupted exception, there are chances for you to do, we always need to handle that in a try-catch block. Okay, so these are the way you might use in order to have a proper communication between threads in a multi-threaded environment. So let's first understand what this producer consumer problem is. Okay, so this is also called as a bounded buffer problem. So this is like a classic example in most of your cases. Okay, so what is actually the problem here? What is the problem of this producer and consumer? So we have two threads. Okay, so the two threads named as producer and consumer. And what they're doing is they're having a shared resource. The shared resource here is a buffer. Okay, so buffer is like a place where you update your data, right? So we have two threads, let's say producer and consumer, and the shared resource is buffer. So what they're trying to do is they're going to use that buffer and do some kind of operation. Okay, so this is like a common buffer. And let's have some fixed size. Okay, we'll fix the size for this buffer. Okay, and we are going to use that buffer as an resource to do any kind of activities by these two threads. So this is the first level of description for our input. Now, what happened is the producer thread, right, which will come into and put some items into the buffer. So basically it adds items into the buffer. And this is like a repetitive process. Okay. Now the consumer is like receives. So consumes is like it's view or reads the data, right? So it reads the items available in the buffer. So how it does that read? It reads only one item at a time. So you understood the context. So we have two threads, producer and a consumer, and we have something called a buffer. It's like a common shared pool. It can be a queue, it can be stack, or it can be array list, it can be anything, but it's a common buffer. It's a fixed size. What you're doing is whoever is acting as a producer will add some data into it, and whoever is acting as a consumer will read data from it, but it's not like whole bunch of data. It's like one by thing. So it can read only one at a time. Okay. So let's first, with this statement, let's create our own producer and consumer. So did you understand the problem, like what we're trying to do so far?
Yes, Megha. Yeah.
Yeah. So the, like, for a more better view perspective, I can say, so this would be your buffer. Okay, it can be anything. So let's say here is your producer and here is your consumer. So what he does is this producer will come and add the data. Okay, he adds the data. So whenever he comes into, he adds, say, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's he's adding. And what is the consumer? He's reading one by one. So it's basically kind of removal, or it's kind of reading activity. So we can consider this as either remove or add. Sorry, view or read. Read or remove. So this would be the way. So it's a common resource where you are trying to add items on top of it, and you're trying to read in one by one item on it. So now let's create our own producer thread. Okay, and we'll all have one more consumer class also. So now let's go to producer. And what is this producer? It's gonna add some data. So let's create our own buffer. So let's create a list. Okay, so let me have a list of string for better understanding than the values as integer. So let's have this. Let's import. Okay, Now we need a constructor to add these items. Otherwise, I need to go and add every time in a different way. So I'm going to have this list with a parameterized constructor, and I'm going to pass the same object and initialize that object here. So we know how to introduce a thread, right? What are the two ways to create a thread?
Create a thread or start a thread?
Create a thread.
We will create the object for that
No. Either you have to extend or
implement runnable.
Yeah, so we are gonna with this time we're gonna do this with implements runnable interface. So whenever you implement runnable, you should need to override the run method as well. So what I'm gonna do right now is gonna add the same thing. We're gonna add these numbers. Okay. So since it's a string, I'll have a string array followed by numbers equal to, I'll just give dynamically 1, 2, okay, let me have these items now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add these values into this list. Okay, that is what this run activity does. Okay, so let me have a for each. This for each is nothing but your numbers, the array numbers. So on every iteration, I'm going to add this string number into my buffer. Buffer object is buffer dot add, and I'm going to add this number. This is what I'm going to add every time in the buffer list. So I'll get the thread name so that you know which thread got executed. So how can I get the thread name?
Get ID or get name?
No. I need to know the current thread. So I have a static method called current thread, and from there I can get the name. If you just give thread name, you have to create your own thread, right? But I don't know the thread object because in producer, I don't know which thread will come and access this, right? I haven't given the producer thread object yet. So I'll have the thread.current thread and then print it. And whoever adds it, let's say that added that number. Number added. Okay. So in this way, your entire run flow will be over. So if you want to have something to confirm that this is not main your current thread, we can have which thread is getting completed. So the main thread or the object thread which you printed. So I'm just printing the same thing to see differentiate whether it's a main thread or the thread object which you passed. Just different. So here I'm going to add a buffer again. Dot. Let's do this a little later. So right now we just added this in the producer one. So what does the consumer does?
It fetches from that
it
list.
reads one by one from the buffer. Okay. So we need to have again a list, which is your buffer. And let's have our own constructor. So we need to override the run method. So now the thing is you're going to read the data, right? So what I'm doing is only if I have the data, I'll do that. I'll go and read it. Otherwise, I won't read it. So to do that, since this is a list object, I can check whether the list is empty or we have some data, right? So we have a method called is empty in our list, right? So I'll check whether the list is empty or it is available. So if the buffer is empty, I'm just continuing it. Otherwise, I'll break it. Now, every time I'm going to read only one element. So I'll go buffer dot get, and based on the index, I'm going to see and get the data. Yeah, this should be fine. If buffer is empty, continue, or else I'll just print the data. This should be fine. System.out.println. Since we plan to remove, right? Since we're using a list, so we'll use the same buffer to remove that element. Okay, so that it will be easy for us to understand which is getting removed. So we'll remove the first position value. Which thread is removing also we'll get to know. Okay, so we are just removing this. Now let's go to the main thing. This. So we're going to create the thread objects. Okay. So we have a list of string, right, which is your buffer object. So far we haven't created the complete memory, right, for this one. So you have to pass that entire array list, because so far we're actually consuming it. Like whoever passes the buffer, I'll consume it. That is what we did in the produce and consumer. So we had a reference, whoever creates it for that object, whoever passes that buffer object, we are initializing it and we are using it. So now we need to create that object, and with that object, we'll pass this object to our thread which we create. Okay, so how do we create the thread? In case of extending thread, we can just create the class name producer consumer problem, and we can just call dot start method. But we are now using implements runnable. So what we have to do, we have to create our own thread. So let this be producer thread, and you have to create new thread object, and within that thread object, you need to pass your runnable instance, right? So in that, this is your runnable new producer, and that should have what? The producer should have what? Buffer. So now you need to pass this buffer object. Was it clear?
Yes, Megha.
So like to differentiate the thread names, we can set our thread names on IDs and everything, whatever you have learned. So I'm just giving it as producer, so that it will be easy whenever you print that. Okay. So the same way I'm going to create my consumer. So here I'm going to pass my consumer object, and this would be the consumer name. So the consumer, like whoever who provides the data will always be one, but the consumer will always be more than one thread, right?
It will read only once, right? But
it will read only once, yeah. But my thing is, usually in reality, I'm asking.
Okay.
What happens? Like say any product, whoever produces it, they produce a bulk of data. That is what in our buffer you have bulk of data. And once you get that bulk of data, we go to shop and we purchase and come. So it's not like one person go and purchase, right? It will be like n number of people go and purchase. So that is what the consumer will be like many, and the producer will be one. So this is kind of 1:n kind of relationship. Okay. So once the producer does for the one time, the consumer can go and remove anytime. Okay. So now we are good with the creation of objects. Now let's kickstart our threads. Consumer dot start. Again, the second consumer dot start. Let's run it. So what happened here? The thread 1 came in, removed the first object. Next, thread 2 came in, he removed the second object. And by the one, the thread name consumer one added, it was the 2. The 2 was the second element in your buffer. And the third thread which came in, it was actually adding the third element. And that's it. Your main was the final part, right? This is your final part. So what happened? This adding happened twice. So twice the 3 numbers got added. By the time when you kick-started this first thread and the second thread, you see the thread 1 removed the 1 and the second thread removed the 2. So by the time it came, you had only one thing which got removed from your second thread. But this consumer is like we created 3 consumers in our case, right? So what happened? The other thread also should go and remove one more element, but the data was not sufficient. We had only 3 elements in our producer bucket. So we got an exception called array index out of bound exception with which thread? Thread 1. Got it? Okay. What happened here is the consumer thread name. I need to set it here. So if you see, the producer added the 3 elements. Okay. The final producer was just a main. Okay. Just a printing. We'll leave that. And now when the consumer came in, did I just give the consumer name again consumer or did I add one thing else? Okay, so here is the name. Okay, so if you see here, the consumer, the first thread removed the 1. The consumer 1 removed the 2. And the consumer again came in and removed the 3. Right? This time you didn't get any exception, right? But earlier you got an exception. So now let me do it again. Let me execute again. So you never know when you get an exception. Okay. So last time when I used the same consumer producer thread object, I was ended up with an exception called array index out of bound exception. Right. So when do we get that exception? Where in your consumer, you have written a condition. If a buffer is empty, you are requesting it to continue. And you're trying to read that one and remove the element. Right? But you need to know where to stop this, right? You need to know when the list is completely empty or there is no data in the list. You need to make sure that there is no control. Like how do you go to a file reading and you make sure that when it reads -1, it is like end of file. The same way, you need to have a control to your end of file as well. So what we'll do is we'll create just a static string, okay, as end of file. And we'll just give a condition. So now here, whenever I'm doing this, buffer is empty, giving continue, right? I'll also do one more check. If my buffer instance, whatever I get, is equals to the end of file. Okay. Sorry, the main classes produce. Okay. So whenever I get this, let me print it. Like when it's end of file, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to come out of it, right? So exit. Then when it exit, you can't just give continue again. Then you have to break that. Whenever you come as exit, you're going to break that flow. So how to break that flow? With the key called break. Now here we'll have the else block. Then you'll have this piece of code. So what did we do now? Like to have a control in our system, we just created an end of file in our main class, and we wanted to make sure whenever we get this as an input, we are like considering that this is a stage where we need to come out of this. Okay, so this we done in consumer part. But what did we do in the producer? We are just adding the data. We didn't add the end of file anywhere here, right? So we need to add that too. So how can we add? So whenever you're reading this, here we're going to add it. Suppose you're adding all the elements into the data buffer, we are going to add this end of file. So this is an indication that you have added your end of file, and whenever who is consuming it will know that this is like end of thing, and you don't need further the data set. Okay, now let's execute it again. So you can see here, the consumer one got exit, consumer got exit. So the order would not be same as you expect. So as per our understanding, the producer will be called first. And once the producer start is triggered, it will go in, add all the 3 numbers and the main, and then it will come to the consumer. Consumer one object will be triggered, and then it will go and consume all the elements in the thread. It will not happen in the flow you assume by seeing the code, right? The thread's behavior would be really different. You can't predict how these threads will act on. Okay. So how can we make this more efficient? So far, what we have done, we have made sure that this is the code. Whoever comes in, whichever threads comes in, this happens. Okay. But this is not more of a control, right? Because this is the buffer is a shared resource, right? Your buffer is a shared resource, but we are not giving that shared property to any of these 2 threads so far. So how can we give that? So what we're going to do is, within this, whenever you're trying to add a piece of code, I'm going to give a control. This particular buffer is a shared object. So no one can take control unless I release that. So I'll go here, introduce the synchronized block, and this block is having a shared resource is what? Buffer. That is my shared resource, right? So I'll go in and then I'll make that as the shared resource. And here I'll just make sure that the thread waits for some time using your sleep method. And why are we giving? In order to avoid this interrupted exceptions only. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use thread dot sleep, and I'm going to give a sleep of, this is milliseconds, okay? So if you give 5,000, only then it becomes 5 seconds. So I'm going to give thread dot sleep. And here I'm just going to print and say this thread has been interrupted. The current thread, whatever thread, has been interrupted. I'm not just printing any logs. I'm just printing which thread got interrupted. Okay. Now this is done. So any questions still here? This particular piece of code for your for loop has been synchronized. But right now buffer.add number is there, right? This is happening outside. So this is happening outside your synchronized block, but this should happen within the synchronized block, right?
Yes, Neha.
So
that first number will be added, right? If we
so earlier what happened, you were just going into the for loop and you're adding it directly called buffer.add. But I want to have control on my shared resource. So I initiated a synchronized block with the buffer as my shared object. And in that I'm adding it. And whenever I add, I'm giving a sleep time. Okay, so that no one can come in and create an interruption, right? So I'm just giving a thread to sleep for some time because I should have the control, no one else. Okay. Now this particular piece has been added. So this particular piece of code has been added. Now this is done. But again, you see here, there's something called buffer.add of this thing. So this should also be added within what? Synchronized block. Okay. So what I did is I just bought synchronized this control on my producer. Now the same thing I need to have a control on my consumer too. Because in consumer so far I didn't have any control on my shared object, right? This buffer is a shared object right now. So how can I make that shared object to work? Again, I need to introduce a block called synchronized. What is the block common instance? buffer. So I'm using this buffer, and within that, I should move this entire condition. So in the entire synchronized block, my piece of code has been executed. So here also, I just want to make sure my thread is actually sleeping. Otherwise, I might end up with an exception, right? So what I'll do here is, I'll again introduce the thread.sleep.
The thread.sleep always we should give in try catch block only.
You can either give throws or you can have try catch block, because it will end up with a try catch block issue. Means it will throw exception. So either you can have that being thrown as part of your run method, or you can have as a try catch block. I wanted to have it as try catch block to see whether that comes as an error message or not. So what we have done is, we just initiated a synchronized block both in producer and consumer. Right? We didn't use any kind of other inputs. We just used the synchronized block for both your producers and consumers. And let's execute our program right now. Since you're giving a sleep time, it is having a timeout. Okay, you gave 5 seconds, right? So it is waiting for 5 seconds and then only it's printing the data. Are you able to see the delay in the output?
Yeah, yes, Mila. From one thread to other.
Yeah, from one thread to other, it's having a wait time. So far, we didn't use wait and notify. We are just still using the synchronized block only. Okay. Yeah. So what happened here? The producer added, the consumer came and removed it. Which consumer? It was consumer 1. Though you created the consumer as your first instance, it considered the consumer 1. Okay, and it removed that instance. Next, the producer added the second. Again, the consumer 1 came in. Okay, and again this came. But by the time the thread consumer have come in, there is no data. Because your consumer, like whoever consumes the data, what happened here? The control was given maximum times. The 3 times was given only for consumer 1 and not to the consumer. Did you notice here?
Yes, yes, Mila. Yes.
So is this the right way? No. Because when you have multiple threads in your system, each should have its own priority, right? You have to give an importance to every thread. If you're not giving such importance, then what happens? You don't need to have a multi-threaded environment. You can just have a single thread and work on it, right? Why do we need these many threads to start and work on the producer part? This is not the actual behavior of your multi-threaded environment, right? It is more of like single thread. Every time consumer 1 is going and getting the output and removing the elements. That's it. Nowhere the other consumer got a chance to print, right?
Yes, yes.
So the main, though it solves the problem of array index out of bound, and the drawback which we hear, it's like all the threads are actually in the blocked state. So what happened here? You are actually using synchronized. When you use synchronized, which is getting blocked, your buffer is getting blocked, right? So no one can use it unless someone releases the control on that particular common resource. So this consumer is a kind of a block state. Unless I get a chance, I can't get in and access that buffer. So I'm kind of in a blocked state. So there are only 2 threads having communication. I'm not getting a chance to get communicated anytime, right? So those threads which are in block state cannot be interrupted. So that is the reason you never got an interruption anywhere, because it is in a block state. If suppose this got a chance to communicate, you might have ended up with an interrupted exception. Because this is also trying to read the data, it is also trying to read the data, you might end up with an exception. But what happened, this is not even coming out because the control was on the buffer was a common resource, was given control using synchronized block. So your one way of problem has been achieved. But the other way, multi-threaded is not happening. Did you get it?
Yeah, understood.
Okay. So why, what is the drawback behind using this synchronized? This synchronized will not help in scheduling the task. Okay. So when you have multiple threads, okay, scheduling the threads will not be taken care from your synchronized thing. So what happens is, whenever you synchronize keyword, whichever thread is active at the time, only that thread will get control. But we had two consumers, right? So the other consumer is not getting chance, or that is not getting internally scheduled to kickstart and go and use the data. So that is a major drawback in synchronize. You can't schedule your threads to work on. Like if you have like 5 tasks and you can't segregate the 5 tasks to 5 threads. So what happens? 5 tasks will be carried out only by one thread. Then the 4 threads are waste, right? Waste of creating memory and waste of creating their particular positioning in the particular CPU. Everything is waste actually. So the thread scheduling is not happening in case of your synchronized block. So we need to consider how can we do that, okay? Which can be resolved. The thread scheduling, which we failed in using the synchronized block, can be achieved using something called reentrant lock. Okay, so this has something called as a configuration policy, where you can go and tell that after this particular time frame, please release the lock. Whoever are available in the environment, whichever thread is available in the environment, can go and then access those particular data. I'm not tightening, I'm not giving a tight condition to that particular synchronized block. I'm giving a kind of time frame. Within 10 seconds, if you come and access, I'm okay. Otherwise, the first thread will not get a chance unless the second thread comes in. So it's like a round robin. One after the other has to come in and then take care of the common data source. It is not like only one data has to work every time. Did you get that?
No, can you repeat that scheduling thread and reentrant?
Yeah. So what happened so far, since we are using synchronized block, only one thread was coming into picture and it is reading your data.
Yeah, till that I got that.
Right. So what is the problem here? The main problem, the motto here is multi-threaded environment. So you have more than one thread to go and access that resource, common resource. But as per our scenario, when we initiated the synchronized block in our code, this multi-threaded was not happening. Only one thread is actually going and reading, and another thread is going and updating the data set. The more than one thread is not acting in that environment. The main motto of this problem is to have multi-threaded environment, but that is not happening because this particular thread is always in block state. It didn't even start its state, right? It's still in idle. It's like newly created, but it's not getting used and it's not getting the control over the shared resource. So what was the problem? The problem is you have made this entire buffer as synchronized, right? Wherever you're using it, you made it as synchronized. So what does this synchronize does? It will not give any, in the back end, it will not create any kind of scheduling task for the threads, okay? Whoever comes in, I might give the value, but that is not taken care from the synchronized block. So it can be anytime one thread or it can be a different thread, but I don't know. But the synchronized will not take care of that scheduling thing. So to have that control on scheduling, like, okay, right now the consumer one has come, you have done your task, just wait for a moment. I'll give control to the other thread. Once that thread works on, I'll give again the control to you. So it's kind of you're sharing the work to multiple threads. But that is not happening when you bring the synchronized keyword. The sharing part or the scheduling part to all the threads in your system is not happening. So to bring that scheduling activity, we have something called reentrant lock. What does this log does is it will help you in scheduling the thread activities. It is more of a configuration policy. Configuration is like you can update the configuration, like for 10 seconds first thread can work, maybe 30 seconds the first thread can work, and post that the other thread can come in and access the data. So in that case, what happens, every time the consumer one will not be active, even the other thread, the consumer also will be active and read the data. So the shared resource will be accessible to all the threads and not to one thread. So every thread will be running and not in block. So it is more of a flexible scheduling activity. Got it?
Yeah. In terms of re-entrant lock, you are saying.
Yeah.
Right?
So it cannot hold like a single monitor. So it's not like you need to have only one thread and one thread can come in, read the data, go out. It is not like controlling on one. It is like you're giving free access to all the threads, but you're giving a time frame, a kind of a check where you can have control to all the threads. Basically a monitoring. You can say it like a kind of monitoring view.
Okay, Steve, got it.
Okay, so when should we actually use this reentrant lock, right? We need to provide this synchronized, but with timed lock weights. So what happened so far in our producer, we just bought the synchronized, but we didn't bring this lock concept anywhere. We were just giving synchronized. The thread.sleep is just for you to execute your output, okay? But you're not giving any kind of lock activity here, like, or you're not giving any kind of time frame, like the other threads to come in and work, right? So this way you can actually achieve your re-entrant lock. We'll see this re-entrant lock in tomorrow's class. But till now, do you have any confusions on or clarifications required on this?
No, it's clear.
Okay. So as we discussed, the wait and notify method. So when do we go for wait and notify method?
When deadlock happens, right?
Yeah. So when two threads communicate, like here also you were having more than one thread, right? The consumer and consumer one. But since we use synchronize, the other thread didn't get a chance. It was still in blocked state, right? So in your wait and notify, it is more of concurrent activity. Like the first thread has to do something, updation or addition, something it has to do. Based on that, you have to take control and do it in your other activity, other task of the second thread or third thread. So here it's more of like dependent work. The first thread has to do it. Only then the second thread can progress on. If the first thread doesn't, we will not be able to progress on it, right? So this is the way which we can consume that kind of communication in using the methods called wait and notify.
Okay. Like if one thread updates, then only the other thread should go and remove something.
Yeah, exactly. So what we can do is in the same producer consumer, since we have this, I don't want to interrupt it. Okay. Because we will see the lock concept. Okay, let me create one more thing. Okay, so let's have this implements runnable, and we need to have override the run method. And again, I'm having a common resource. Okay, you need to have some common resource, only then you will be able to understand. I'm just going with integer. So I'll have a maximum capacity also. Okay, let this be integer. So let me create a constructor. So now what we can do is we can have a buffer getting input. Like how did we add the data, right? Earlier, we are going to add the data by just incrementing the value. So let's have a count value. So let's say int count equal to 0. And now what we're going to do is every time the condition satisfies, since I'm going to bring the try loop because we are going to end up with an exception interrupted. So you can either throw it or you can have your cache block. It's your wish. Okay. So now what I'm going to do in the activity is I'm going to increment the count. And what I'm going to do is let me have a method called produce. Like as you had your table method, let's have this produce. And this produce will have nothing but the count which I'm passing. So it should be an integer. And let it be private because I'm not going to use outside. So let it be private. And the return type which I'm not going to return anything. It's just an activity I'm going to perform. So here what I'll do is I'll call this produce and I pass this count. Okay. So every time the count comes, I'm going to increment the value. So every time the run activity is created by any thread, whoever calls it, I'm going to increment the count value. And what this count value does, I'm going to do that logic here. So here, let's print the stack trace. So now in this produce method, what I'm going to do. So we are aware of the synchronized block, right? So here my shared resource is what? The list of integer. So I'm going to use the same thing, shared resource. And here I'm going to just validate based on my size. So what is the size? If my value list is having, to check the size of list, right? We use size method. If is equal to the max capacity. So if it is equal, the queue is full, right? The list is full. You don't have any data. It's completely full. If the maximum capacity is done, it's full. So I'm just going to give full. And here I'm going to initiate something called wait with the help of the list object value dot wait. Okay. Since what should I do here? It either throws this exception or you have to give the try catch block. So now, did you get what did I do here? So my common object is list value. I'm using that. And with that, I'm trying to increment the count. And whenever I'm incrementing the count, I'm actually using the synchronized block to have the control on the shared resource and making sure whenever there is a maximum capacity achieved, I'm just giving a control like I have to wait because I already exceeded my list value, list size. So I'm just giving a control on wait. Suppose this. Let me go and then make my thread sleep for some time. Let's give 2000, just 2 seconds. And now I'm going to add some data into it. So since it's a list, I'm going to add what I'm going to add here. The count which I received, that is the process. So only if it achieves the maximum size, I'm giving a control as wait. Otherwise, what I'm doing, I'm adding the whatever value I'm getting it, I'm adding it to my list of data. Okay, so now once this is done, value added. So I need to again tell that I need to notify the other threads to have control, right? So I just give value dot notify all. So it's not one thread, it's multiple threads. So I'm giving notify all. So did you get an idea what did I do here so far?
Yes, please. Yes.
Any confusions?
No.
Okay. So this is the way we have done the producer aspect. So let's create a consumer aspect. Just 5 minutes, I'll end up, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
So what is the list we have? Value. I'm just using it again. We need to override the run method. Okay. And we need a constructor. Here, I don't need capacity because the consumer will not care about the entire size list or whether it reached the capacity, right? It's going to read the data from the buffer. So I'm going to have only the list. So what I need to consume? So I need to have a consume method again. So let's have a consume. Which again throws an interrupted exception. So I'm just using that. So again, it is a synchronized block. Why is it synchronized? Why are we going with synchronized?
To execute first, the producer should execute and then the consumer to get that.
No. To have the, since it's a common resource, to have control, we go for synchronized. Okay, that is the reason we prefer synchronized block. Otherwise, we never go for synchronized, right? Did you understand the topic?
Yes.
Okay. So now we are going to check every time whether the list is empty or it has some data. So this is the list value. To check empty, we have this empty method. So we're going to say this is empty. And what we are going to do, whenever you are full in the producer aspect, we are going to wait. Whenever the list is empty from the consumer aspect, we are going to wait. So for that, which object has to be wait? The list object has to be in the wait. Okay. Now let me give again thread. But sleep some 1,000 seconds. I need to notify again, right? So I need to use notify all. But before notifying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove. So since I'm using a list object, I'm going to do a removal instead of adding it. So the removal aspect is consumed. Okay. And what did I consume here? The list dot remove. So value is the list, right? Value dot remove. And what is the object we are going to remove here? The first object. Okay. So now I have used this consume, but I need to call it somewhere, right? I need to call it in the run method. I'm just going to call consume. Okay, so what did I do here? I had a maximum capacity. Whenever I reach that, I'm making the thread to wait for some time. And I'm just notifying it all post the data has been added. Okay. Whenever the consumer comes, if it is empty, I'm making the thread to wait. So that what happens, the thread will not get communicated or end up with any kind of deadlock situation, right? So that is the reason I have given wait whenever there's an empty or it is full, completely full. So now here, let me create the objects. List of integer. So let's say it is as list. New array list of integer. Okay. So this is my shared resource. Now I just gave a maximum capacity, right? So what I'll do is I use max capacity as let's testing for testing. I'll just give 5. That is easy because I need to add that many data. So let's create thread again. So this is producer 1 equal to new thread. And within the thread, I need to create again new producer 1 object and then pass what? What should I pass here? For producer 1, what are the parameters I need to pass? Value and capacity. So the value here is list and maximum capacity is this. I need to pass these two instances. Now I need to create the same thing for my consumer. Consumer 1. And the consumer 1 was having an object of only list. So I don't need the max capacity.
Capacity is for that list, right? Like to have only 5 size of array. That's the capacity we are giving, right?
Sorry.
That capacity we are giving for the list, right? Like the total size should be 5.
Yeah. Since I used the thread object as consumer one, it was throwing an issue. So now what we did is we create the instances and we need to kickstart now. Producer one dot start. So first time data was 0, 1 added, 2 was added, 3 added, 4, and now it is full. Okay, now you added 5 again. Now the data is again full. So whenever there's a full, you're actually giving a wait notification. So other threads can't work unless you give a control. So you see there's no activity happened here. Why so? Because you gave control whenever there is a full, right? Whenever your data is equal. The maximum capacity which I gave was 5, right? So it is waiting. There is nothing happened. You just got full, which is like waiting. So whenever it came back, it consumed. But it is like waiting for a longer time, right?
Yeah.
So it is like kind of like it's waiting for a long time. So we won't get ended with the situation of interruption. So let's say now if I'm giving a max of 3, you got it? So whenever you reach your maximum capacity, the consuming part is not happening. And in the consumer, I just removed the first element alone, right?
Yeah.
So that is the reason you see the removed element as 0.
But the first time when it became full, it went for the consumer, right? Actually, and
yeah, even it went in now also. In both the cases, the consumer thing happened only once. Because whenever your list is empty, only then you can go and wait. List is empty thing. So now let's say my list, whatever I created, is null.
Okay.
And let me execute now. You got null pointer exception?
Yeah.
Okay, right now this particular data is empty, right? So whenever you come here, if the value is empty, then it goes into the list empty and it makes you wait from the consumer perspective. But since the consumer was not waiting, it just went and removed the value and you got this printed.
Oh, it went for the
Yeah, or if there was a situation where your list object is empty and you don't have any data in it, then what would have happened? It would have got printed list is empty. And it would have waited there itself.
But we
get it?
Null is not empty, right? Actually,
null is not empty, but you got null point exception, right? You need to handle that. So if the value is empty and if value is not equal to null, only then I can go in. Here also have value. So I need to check whether the synchronized value is not equal to null. But this is something you need to do before the synchronized block. To have this null check. So the null check is little different. Okay, so don't worry about it.
okay.
So even here you need to introduce that. That is something you can handle anytime, the null checks. Right now we're just understanding the concept. See, nothing happened. Because your list is empty. If the list is present, you might go produce the data and compare and then add the data sets. But this time the list is null. So it can't go in because you have given a check, right? So it can't go in. The same way in the consumer, it can't go in because the value is null. So what if I create an object like this? And let me run. Your entire thing, the object creation is happening here, right? In this part, you're adding the data. Whenever there's a call happening, you're incrementing the count. And in that increment of count, your data is getting added up, right? So what happens internally in the wait or notify, it will just wait for some time. Since I haven't given any time frame, it is waiting for long. So if I have given some time frame, right? Let's say I'm giving here 10. And notify all, I don't want anything. There is a consumer one. Here, producer one. Let me get 10. So after 10 seconds, it has to end up with a timeout, right?
Yeah.
Go here and again run it. See, it is like full. Because I gave timeout, and what is happening? It is printing full. What is happening with the full? Whenever your size is equal, you're printing it as full and it is waiting for 10 seconds and you're not interrupting it. No one is actually coming in.
Okay.
Okay, so earlier I didn't give timeout. So what happened? It was waiting for that time, but we couldn't see that.
Yeah. That consumer has been started. So in the meantime, like it got executed, right? Like previously.
No, it is still doing the same thing. But since I gave timeout, you are able to see that full getting printed often. If I haven't given, what is like it is 0. It means like it has to wait until you crash your system. You got it?
Yes, Neha. Yes.
So this way, what happens? Your thread waits, but it will not go and interrupt it. So in this is not, I would say, this is not a right way, but this is better than ending up with an exception. So when two threads interact, what we're doing is we're handling all the scenarios in order to avoid the miscommunication between them or a deadlock situation. So this wait and notify will help you. Since this is a very simple example, I'm just taking whether list is empty or full. That's it. That is the scenario I've taken out. But if you go for a bank example, you have to go and check whether your bank has enough sufficient balance to do a credit operation or to do a debit operation, right? So if you don't have money, you can't do anything. So in that case, what you can initiate is, sorry, where this is. What you can do is every time a balance debit is happening, you have to actually reduce it from your overall balance and you have to make sure the amount which you're going to debit right now from your account balance is not equivalent. It should be less than the balance. Only then you will be able to debit that amount. Otherwise, if suppose the person is giving 10,000 and your bank balance was having only 5,000 and you will not be able to debit it, right? In that case, the scenario fails. So in that case, what we can do, we can just give wait and all that wait will not have a control on the next transaction. So what happens? Your balance still remains as 5,000 because you didn't do any kind of operation of debit later. It was not considered in this flow. Did you get?
Yes, somewhat.
Yeah. So don't dig deeper, but basic idea of wait and notify. Did you understand? We can see some more examples on bank again. But
one more thing, like if the first thread is waiting, immediately the like whatever the next thread is available, it will come and it will perform its task, right? Actually, in the waiting time.
I need to notify, right? When am I notifying the other threads? Whenever I add the data, only then I'm notifying the other thread. So what I'm notifying? The list I'm notifying. So what happened here? The first 3 values which got added, okay? And then I notified every time. So whenever data has been added, I'm notifying the other threads to consume. But when the consumer thread came in, only one time it actually happened, okay? But the next time when it came, my data size was equivalent. So what happened? I came inside this and data has printed as full, and it was like waiting for a long time. So here, don't consider the way your output got printed.
Okay.
Okay, because the flow, what you written is like whenever the capacity and the size are equivalent, you're making it to wait. So how does that happen? Whenever the producer is getting called again and again, the count is getting incremented. In that increment, whenever you reach the maximum value, only then you end up here. So the flow comes only in the last. But in the printing thing, if you see, the full came first and the value added came last. So the threads will behave very weirdly. You never knew the output is same every time.
Even though we use synchronized, but the control is still different, right? Like, but
Synchronized is basically to tell that it's a shared resource. So it is being used by both producer and consumer. So in your case, the list is a shared resource. From this producer one, I'm using it to add the data. And from the consumer end, I'm trying to remove the data. So both are actually doing the same thing. I'm removing the data, and post removal, I was able to add one more in. Did you notice?
Yes, yes, yes.
So it is like common resource. In both the cases, I'm doing it. If suppose if it's like not a shared resource, I don't need to go into synchronized itself. So along with the synchronized, what I'm trying to do with wait and notify, I'm giving an alert to the other threads. Unless I notify you, please don't do any activity on the shared resource.
Understood. Yeah, got it now.
Okay, so it's more of an instruction. That's it.
Since our while condition is met, so we could not do the full, like in the consumer part, we cannot do the full task, like that wait and notify cannot be completed, right? Because before that itself, our while condition got interrupted, and we were still that list became full, and it was waiting for the time actually.
Yeah, exactly. Did you get? So yeah, you can still go through the wait notify method, understand it. We'll see a few more examples in the next class. Okay. So, but the basic idea, like we almost covered the major topics of thread, but other few topics will be covering up, not now, but on the examples which we work on. But the basic thing, what is a thread, how to create the threads, what are the properties we have, how to create with a multi-threaded environment, how to add those values, and how to have a shared resource. How can the synchronized come into picture? We got a basic overview. Now we have to enhance the other concepts of lock and things and multi-threaded environment by just adding one or two examples, like how we learned collection, right? The same way. But the base of thread is being covered. Okay. So we'll see how we can use in real time with some examples, okay, in the coming classes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions, we can again connect tomorrow and learn it.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.